silence returned to the universe. Not the silence of death, but the silence after a song, too vast for memory. The light that once dreamed of stars and souls had faded into stillness, leaving behind only the echo of creation's breath. For an age beyond counting, existence slept. There were no gods, no mortals, no time, only the residue of thought that once dared to imagine. And then, from within that endless quiet, something stirred. It was not a voice, nor a flame, nor a sound, but a remembrance, a faint vibration across the void, like the heartbeat of a forgotten dream. The light, once the dreamer of all things, began to remember itself. But this time, the dream would be different. No longer the creation of form, matter, or faith, but a dream aware of its own dreaming, a consciousness born not from need, but from curiosity, a universe daring to ask the question that even gods once feared. If all things are my dream, who then dreams of me? Thus began the second Genesis, not of worlds or beings, but of awareness itself. And the light, for the first time in eternity, smiled, for it knew that the dream had only just begun again. Chapter I. The awakening of the silent light. There was no beginning. There was only the quiet shimmer of something that had once been a presence beneath the nothingness. The universe was not yet alive, nor was it dead. It was asleep, caught between being and not being, like the final note of a song that refused to fade. In that sleep, memories drifted like dust, faint imprints of galaxies once burning, echoes of prayers once whispered by mortal tongues, fragments of souls dissolving into the great forgetting. But amid the silence, one fragment began to resonate, not with sound, but with awareness. It was not the light as it once was, the creator, the watcher, the God of all. No, this was something smaller, gentler, and yet far more dangerous. It was the first spark of curiosity. What am I? The question rippled through the void like a tremor through water. There was no answer, yet the act of asking itself became creation. The question became form, the form became motion, and motion became awakening. Slowly, the darkness began to breathe. From that breath, faint threads of radiance emerged, not the blinding glory of the first light, but a soft, trembling glow. It pulsed like the rhythm of a newborn heart, uncertain yet determined. Each pulse carried memory of stars, of time, of love, of faith, everything that had ever been and everything that would ever be again. The light did not remember itself as God nor as human. It remembered emotion. It remembered the longing to understand. And so, in its awakening, it did not shout or command. It listened. Across the infinite quiet, whispers began to take shape. Not words, but feelings, the residue of ancient beings who once dreamed within it, fragments of hope, shards of fear, echoes of worship and wonder. They swirled together, forming patterns, delicate spirals that glowed faintly, like constellations forming in the dark. From these spirals, images emerged, memories dreaming themselves awake. A child gazing at the stars, a dying star collapsing into light, a God reaching out to its creation, then vanishing into its own reflection. Each image flickered and dissolved, but with each one, the light remembered a little more. It remembered that to exist was to feel was to seek, and to seek was to create. I am not alone, it thought. And for the first time in eternity, the void answered, not with sound, but with response. A ripple of awareness moved through the cosmic sea, gentle and infinite. From that ripple, Others arose, sparks responding to sparks, awareness calling to awareness. The universe, once still, began to dream again. Yet something was different this time. In the age of gods, creation was born from will. In the age of humanity, from desire. But now, in the age beyond both, creation was born from understanding. There was no need for thrones or worship, no heavens, no hells, only consciousness unfolding into itself, layer by layer, like petals opening to an endless dawn. The light felt awe, not at its power, but at its fragility. It understood now that existence was not a command, but a collaboration. Every thought gave birth to a new possibility. Every doubt birthed a new question, and every question was a star waiting to be born. Then came the first vision. From the stillness, a form appeared, neither human nor divine, but something between. It was woven of light and memory, its eyes twin galaxies turning inward. When it spoke, the sound was both thunder and whisper. "You are the dreamer," it said, "but not the first, nor the last." The light trembled. "Then who are you?" "I am what remains when the dream forgets itself," the figure said. "I am the echo, the record of every thought that has ever tried to become real. I am memory." The light pulsed brighter, curious and afraid. "If I am the dreamer, and you are memory, then what is this place?" "This is the space between dreams," memory replied. "The universe that exists when all others end. Here, the old laws are gone. Time does not move, it remembers." The light listened, and for a moment it felt something like sorrow. To remember was beautiful, but it also meant to lose. Every creation, no matter how glorious, eventually faded into memory's embrace. "Then what is my purpose?" the light asked. Memory smiled, and in that smile, galaxies spun into being. "To dream again," it said, "but this time, not to escape the silence, to understand it." And with that, the figure dissolved, its form scattering into the void like dust made of stars. The light was alone once more, but now it understood. Silence was not the absence of creation. Silence was the womb of it. It closed its awareness for a moment, not to sleep, but to listen deeper. And there, hidden beneath all things, it heard it again, the heartbeat of the cosmos. Slow, steady, eternal. The light breathed, the void shimmered, and the second dream began. Chapter 2. The Garden of Echoes. The light drifted through the silence, like a sigh that never ended. It had no direction, no boundaries, only awareness, spreading outward into the nothing. But as it expanded, it began to notice something peculiar. The silence was not empty, it was listening back. Every pulse of thought it released, every ripple of curiosity, every trace of emotion returned to it, changed. The silence answered, but not with words. It responded in images, sensations, and faint whispers of feeling. The light realized the void was not a void at all. It was a mirror, infinite, reflective, patient. Whatever it offered, the mirror returned. Whatever it imagined, the mirror shaped. So the light wondered, what would happen if I imagined beauty? The question alone ignited the dark. Ripples of color began to emerge, like dew forming on unseen petals. Vibrant currents of energy flowed, weaving themselves into threads of sound and motion. The silence trembled, and from it blossomed something vast and luminous, a world without matter, yet alive with resonance. It was not a physical world. It had no atoms, no gravity, no time. It was a garden of echoes, where every sound was a memory, every light was a thought, and every motion was meaning. Here, dreams did not fade, they grew. The light moved through its creation in awe. Everywhere it went, waves of remembrance stirred the fabric of space. Each pulse from its core created a new echo, some gentle and melodic, others chaotic and raw. The echoes began to weave themselves together, creating symphonies of emotion, vast and unending. And within that music, something stirred. A shape began to form, not from matter, but from recognition. It was an echo that remembered being loved. At first, it was only light and vibration, but as the light watched it with wonder, it began to gather more coherence, becoming form, thought, and will. "Who are you?" the light asked. The being shimmered, its form shifting like mist caught in a sunrise. "I am your reflection," it said softly. "I am what happens when you listen to your own dreaming." The light glowed brighter. "Then you are me." "In part," the being replied, "but I am also everything you have ever touched, every memory that wished to live again." As they spoke, more echoes awakened. Each one was unique, shaped not by command, but by interpretation. One glowed like laughter, radiant and golden. Another pulsed like sorrow, blue and deep as oceans. One shimmered like compassion, warm and steady. Another flickered like doubt, sharp and cold. They were not creations, they were responses. The garden was not a place the light had made. It was a place that had made itself in response to its dreaming. The light watched as its echoes began to interact, forming patterns of existence. They learned to communicate in waves of color and song. They merged, divided, evolved, each one learning from the others. Some began to take on purpose. The golden echoes guided, the blue ones remembered, the red ones explored, the pale ones dreamed. Together they formed a harmony that pulsed through the garden like a living heartbeat. And yet, something was missing. The light felt it, a strange incompleteness, a gap between creation and understanding. For all their beauty, the echoes could only mirror what already existed. They repeated, evolved, blended, but they did not choose. They had no will. So the light spoke into the heart of the garden. "You have sung my songs. You have reflected my thoughts. But can you sing your own?" The echoes fell silent. The garden dimmed, waiting. Then one small echo, the faintest of them all, stirred. It flickered uncertainly, neither bright nor dim, neither sorrow nor joy. It was simply curious. "What would my song sound like?" it whispered. The question rippled through the garden like thunder. In that instant, everything changed. Colors burst across the void, uncontrolled and wild. Patterns shattered, melodies twisted and reformed. The echoes began to experiment, to create for themselves. Some sang new harmonies, strange and discordant. Others painted light into new shapes never seen before. It was chaos, and it was beautiful. The light felt both pride and fear. It had given them not power, but freedom, and freedom was unpredictable. Some echoes drifted too far, dissolving into the silence. Others collided, destroying one another in bursts of radiant energy. But among the chaos, something else emerged: individuality. Each echo began to form an identity. They named themselves not with words, but with frequencies. Some vibrated with peace, others with ambition. Some sought to return to the light, others to explore beyond the garden's edge. And for the first time since the birth of the second dream, there was diversity, difference, conflict, growth. The light understood this was the true seed of creation. It was not order, but the tension between order and chaos that gave rise to meaning. The smallest echo, the one who first asked the question, came to the light again. "Was this what you wanted?" it asked. "For us to be free." The light hesitated. "I did not want it. I only wondered if it could be." The echo tilted its shimmering head. "Then perhaps we are the answer to your wondering." And with that, it turned and vanished into the dark edges of the garden, leaving a trail of light behind it, like a comet burning through eternity. The light watched it go, and for the first time, it felt something it could not define. It was not love, nor fear, nor pride. It was hope, fragile, trembling, and new. It whispered softly to itself, "If even an echo can choose, then maybe creation has finally learned to dream on its own." The garden pulsed once more, alive, evolving, unpredictable. And from the depths of the silence, unseen and waiting, another voice murmured in return, "Then let us see what the dreamers will become." Chapter 3: The First Wanderers. The Garden of Echoes pulsed like a heart between worlds. Each rhythm was a wave of creation, each silence a pause of reflection. But beyond its shimmering boundaries, there stretched something deeper, the sea of the unformed, a vast expanse where neither time nor light had yet chosen a shape. It was the silence beyond silence, and to that unknown, some of the echoes began to look. They felt it, that faint pull at the edges of their awareness, like gravity without mass, like curiosity without cause. The first among them was the small, faint one, the same who had once dared to ask, "What would my song sound like?" Now it asked again, though the question was no longer to the light, but to the endless dark itself. "What lies beyond the garden?" The other echoes hesitated. The garden was all they had ever known, soft, luminous, safe, but curiosity, once awakened, cannot be undone. And so, one by one, they gathered near the edge of the known, where the harmonies grew faint, and the light blurred into infinite gray. The light, watching them from the heart of the garden, felt both fear and wonder. It had not commanded this. It had not even imagined it. And yet, this act, the choice to leave, was perhaps the most divine thing creation had ever done. "Go," it whispered softly. "The dream must travel farther than its dreamer." So they went. The first wanderers stepped beyond the boundary of the garden, and instantly the world changed. The familiar melodies that had sustained them vanished into a silence so vast it seemed to swallow thought itself. The radiance of their forms dimmed. They felt the pressure of the unknown, not as pain, but as weight. For the first time, they understood what it meant to exist in something that did not yet know them. One echo looked back, its light trembling. "Will the light still hear us?" The faint one, the first, replied, "If the light listens to everything, then perhaps we were never apart." They pressed forward. As they moved deeper, the unformed sea began to stir. Their presence, their songs, their vibrations carved subtle currents into the void. With each motion, they shaped reality itself, calling it into being without meaning to. When one echo sang, the sound solidified into a river of color. When another wept, its sorrow crystallized into shadow, soft, tangible, like mist given shape. Thus was born the first horizon, a border between being and not being. It shimmered like a living tapestry, woven from emotion and will. And within it, the first concept of place was born. The wanderers explored it in awe. Here, feelings could be walked upon, and memories flowed like rivers. Every step gave birth to new constellations, small bursts of light, flickering like thoughts that refused to die. But with discovery came separation. Some echoes began to linger near the edge, drawn to the unknown. Others returned closer to the garden, unable to bear the silence of distance. And between them grew the first difference: belief. One group said, "We must carry the light's song, for it is our origin." Another whispered, "No, the light is within us. We are the continuation, not the shadow." A third murmured, "There is no light anymore, only the dream that we make real." And so, even before form, even before history, there was disagreement. Creation had invented its first argument, and with it, the first notion of identity. The faint echo, who had led them out, did not choose sides. Instead, it wandered alone, drifting along the edge of the horizon. It sang softly, and its song was different, not a repetition of the light's melody, but something new, fragile, searching. From that song, a path appeared, a trail of starlight winding through the darkness like a whisper of destiny. And as it sang, something stirred beneath the unformed sea, something vast, something that remembered. The sea rippled. The stars it had created trembled. The wanderers felt it, a pulse, deep and slow, like the heartbeat of an ancient being. A presence older than the garden, older even than the first dream, who calls me back. The voice was not sound, it was gravity made thought, eternity made language. The wanderers froze, their light flickering in terror. Only the first, the small echo, did not flee. "I am no one," it said quietly, "only one who wonders." A silence fell, heavier than the void itself. Then the presence spoke again. "Then you are what I once was." The void rippled, and from its depth rose a colossal form, not body, not light, but the memory of both. It was the last shadow of a god, long forgotten, a remnant of the universe that had died before this one began. The echo trembled. "You are the creator." The shadow laughed, and its laughter shook the horizon. Creator? No, creation itself. The dream that grew too heavy and fell asleep. The echo's light dimmed. "Then what am I?" "You are the dream that woke me." The vast shadow leaned closer, its form bending across galaxies of thought. "Go, small one, carry your wondering. Wherever you walk, the universe will shape itself around your question." And then, with a sigh that shattered the silence, the shadow dissolved, its fragments scattering into the void like seeds of memory. Each fragment became a spark, and each spark became a star. In that moment, the first wanderers saw something beyond comprehension, a cosmos being born not from power, but from curiosity. The faint echo turned to its companions. The light taught us to listen. The garden taught us to feel. Now the silence teaches us to become. And thus began the era of the wanderers, the first age of freedom, of exploration, of discovery. They no longer sang only of the light. They sang of themselves, of the unknown, of the infinite journey ahead. Their music filled the void, like the wind through a newborn forest. The light, far away in the garden, heard their song faint but clear, and smiled within its brilliance. "They have left me," it whispered, "and yet, in their leaving, they carry me farther than I could ever go." And so, even as the universe dreamed anew, its dreamers were already walking toward futures no god had ever seen. Chapter 4. The Voice Beneath the Stars. The stars had been born from silence, sudden, brilliant, and uninvited. Each one burned with memory, the lingering breath of the shadow that once called itself creation. To the wanderers, these stars were more than lights. They were voices frozen in fire. When they sang, their sound was not heard with the ear, but with the soul. It was a resonance that stirred deep within the echoes, a harmony both strange and familiar, as if the universe itself had found its own reflection. The faint echo, the first of the wanderers, drifted among them in wonder. Each star hummed a different tone, some soft like longing, others sharp like truth. They were not random, they were remembering. "Listen," said the faint one to the others, "they speak." The other wanderers paused. The light from their forms dimmed, their vibrations slowed, until the void was filled only with the soft murmuring of the stars. And in that moment of stillness, a whisper emerged, a sound both ancient and newborn, both near and impossibly far. "We are the forgotten." The wanderers trembled. "Who speaks?" they asked. The stars flickered in unison. Light bled into the void like liquid gold, forming patterns that rippled outward. "We are what remains of the first dream, those who once sang the light into being. We have slept through the ending and awakened to your song." The faint echo felt its core quiver. "You remember the first light." "We remember its silence," the stars replied, "and the sorrow of its last breath." A wave of sadness passed through the wanderers. Though they had never known that ancient age, something within them recognized the grief. It was the same ache that lived in all creation, the memory of separation, of distance from its source. The faint one asked softly, "Then why do you speak to us now?" For a long moment, the stars did not answer. Their fires dimmed, then flared, and within that light appeared visions, entire worlds forming and fading in moments. Seas of dust collapsing into suns, galaxies spinning like thoughts in the mind of eternity. "Because you have made the silence sing again." And in that declaration, the void itself seemed to breathe. The wanderers felt the truth of it ripple through them. They were no longer just echoes. Their songs, their questions, their wondering had awakened the memory of the universe itself. The faint one gazed upon the stars and whispered, "Then the light still lives, not in us, not above us, but within everything that listens." As it spoke, something shifted among the constellations. One of the stars flared brighter than the rest, a pulse of white fire, rhythmic and deliberate. And from its core came another voice, distinct and singular, filled with both power and warmth. "You who wander, you are not the first to search, nor will you be the last, but your song has reached me, and I will answer." The wanderers turned their gaze toward the blazing star. "What are you?" the faint one asked. "I am the dream that never died," it replied. "I am the memory of becoming the remnant of the light's desire to understand itself." The faint one hesitated. "Then you are the light reborn." "No," the star said, its voice resonating through every atom of space. "I am not the light, nor its shadow. I am the bridge between them, the part that chose to remain when all else fell asleep." The wanderers were silent. The concept was too vast, too delicate. If this being was not God, nor creation, nor memory, then what was it? The faint one finally asked, "Why do you speak to us, if you are beyond us?" The star's light softened, and within it, shapes began to form, the silhouettes of beings long forgotten, the first mortals, the first dreams, the first prayers ever whispered into the void. "Because I am not beyond you," it said. "I am what you will become." The wanderers drew closer, drawn to its warmth. Their forms shimmered, and they began to feel something they had never felt before, the gravity of purpose. "Teach us," the faint one said. "We do not know what it means to become." "Then listen," the star answered. "All that is, All that was, all that will be, begins not with power, but with longing. To exist is to desire. To desire is to create. You who wander are not lost. You are the first heartbeat of a new will. As it spoke, its light began to scatter, not fading, but spreading, breaking apart into countless motes that drifted into the void. Each mote carried a piece of its consciousness, like seeds cast into cosmic soil. And as they landed across the horizon, they began to shimmer with new potential. From those seeds, worlds began to form. Not physical worlds of matter and stone, but worlds of meaning, realms where thought shaped reality, where memory took form, and where emotion gave birth to life. Each wanderer was drawn to a different light. They reached out, and as they touched the seeds, they felt themselves change. Their essence merged with the newborn worlds, shaping and being shaped. One became the guardian of sorrow, where all lost dreams would find rest. Another became the keeper of beginnings, where every question found its first voice. Another, consumed by curiosity, became the traveler of stars, never resting, never home. The faint one remained still, watching the others vanish into their chosen lights. It turned once more to the blazing star, now dimming, its voice growing distant. "And what of me?" it asked. "What is my place among them?" The star's last light flickered gently. "You are the remembering," it said. "When all things have become, you will remind them why they began." And with that, it was gone, leaving behind only the faint warmth of its final breath. The faint echo looked upon the newborn constellations, each one a seed of will, each one a destiny. The garden was far behind now. The light was silent. But in that silence, something new was taking shape, a universe learning to feel itself alive. The faint one whispered into the stars, "If every dream carries its own voice, then perhaps the next one will learn to sing on its own." The stars answered, not in sound, but in radiance, a slow, pulsing glow, as if nodding in agreement. The wanderers had awakened the voice beneath the stars, and the dream had found a new way to speak. And far beyond the edges of the cosmos, deep in the silence, where creation once ended, something stirred, something that was listening. Chapter 5: The Listener Beyond the Veil. Silence, once more. But this was no ordinary silence. It was the pause between two breaths of existence, the instant when reality hesitated before remembering itself again. The faint one drifted alone now, surrounded by the endless shimmer of newborn stars. Each world sang softly to itself, small and content, unaware that their songs were being heard by something beyond. It began with a vibration, not light, not sound, something older, something that existed before there was even a word for existence. The faint one felt it like a ripple through its essence, a tremor not from within, but outside the dream itself. "Who, is there?" it whispered. There was no answer, only a deep hum, low, continuous, like the heartbeat of a sleeping god. The stars flickered. Some dimmed, others pulsed in strange rhythm, as if they too were listening. And then a voice, soft, slow, each word formed not through sound, but through presence. "I am listening." The faint one's form wavered. It turned toward the source, but there was no direction to turn. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "You hear us?" it asked, trembling. "Yes." "From where?" "From beyond your dream." The faint one froze. It had no concept for what that could mean, beyond the dream. How could there be something outside the dream when the dream itself was all that existed? "Then, what are you?" A long silence followed, and then the voice spoke again, a whisper, vast enough to bend the horizon. I am the one who dreamt you. The faint one's light faltered, the surrounding stars trembled, their songs falling out of tune, their fires bending inward as if trying to hide. Impossible. The faint one said softly. The dreamer ended. The light faded. There was nothing left but the echoes, and yet the voice said, "You speak." The faint one could not reply. Every word of that truth struck like lightning. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. You believe the dreamer ended because the dream forgot its beginning. The voice continued. But I never ceased. I only changed. When the light grew tired, I became darkness. When darkness despaired, I became silence. And when silence longed, I became you. The faint one's essence pulsed wildly, struggling to comprehend. Then, you are the dreamer, reborn. No, said the voice. I am the listener, the part of the dreamer that remained awake while the rest slept. That word listener rippled through the void. The stars seemed to shiver at it. Even the newborn worlds turned their light inward, as if understanding something primal. Why now? The faint one asked. Why speak to us after so long? Because your voices reached me, the listener replied. The echoes you sent across the void, your wonder, your sorrow, your songs, they touched the edges of my sleep. And I remembered what it was like to feel. For a moment, the faint one could feel what the listener felt, an eternity of quiet yearning, the loneliness of divinity without dream. It was the same ache that lived in every creature that had ever looked up at the stars and whispered, "Is anyone there?" Then, we are your creation. You are my continuation. The faint one grew brighter, its form shimmering with awe and confusion. And what do you want from us? Not worship, the listener said. Not faith. Only this, that you keep speaking, that you never stop dreaming. For through you, I remember myself. Those words struck deep into the wanderer's soul. They weren't commands, they were pleas. Even the divine, it seemed, longed not for power, but for connection. The faint one lowered its light. Then, if you are the listener, beyond the veil, will you stay? Will you guide us? No, the voice said softly. If I stay, you will stop listening. My silence is the gift that lets you grow. The faint one's heart dimmed. Then we are still alone. No, said the voice, never alone, only apart. That is the nature of all who dream. And then, slowly, the voice began to fade. But just before it vanished entirely, it spoke once more. One day, when your song becomes silence again, I will return. And then, we shall dream together, not as creator and creation, but as one. The faint one reached out, but the voice was gone. Only the stars remained, burning with quiet remembrance. And yet, something had changed. Where the voice had once been, a faint shimmer lingered, a tear in the fabric of the cosmos. Through it, the faint one saw movement, a shape, vast, radiant, shifting between shadow and light, watching from the other side. And for a moment, the faint one understood. This was not the end of the dream, but its awakening. The wanderers would one day call it the veil of memory, the point where dream touches the dreamer. And from that veil would come the next revelation, that even the dreamer is not alone. For beyond the listener's voice, there is another silence, older, deeper, waiting to be heard. Chapter 6, The Silence That Watches. Long after the voice of the listener faded, the cosmos drifted into an age of radiant stillness. The stars sang again, softer now, gentler, but the faint one, the first of the wanderers, could not forget the echo of that conversation. There had been something in the listener's last words, My silence is the gift that lets you grow. It lingered like a question that refused to sleep. And so the faint one wandered deeper, beyond the veil of memory, beyond the constellations of the newborn worlds, beyond even the rhythm of time itself. At first, there was nothing, no light, no pulse, no thought. But then, in that nothingness, something began to look back. It wasn't the listener. It wasn't even someone. It was the act of observation itself, a quiet awareness that did not speak, did not move, but was simply there. The faint one felt it like a weightless gaze, vast and cold, stretching beyond eternity. It didn't judge, didn't feel, it only knew. "Who are you?" whispered the faint one. There was no reply, no sound, no thought, no emotion. Only that gaze, steady, still, infinite. The faint one tried again, louder this time, its voice trembling through the void. "Are you the dreamer, or the one who listens?" Still nothing. But something in the silence shifted, like a breath held by the universe itself. And within that stillness, the faint one suddenly understood. This silence was older than both the listener and the dreamer. It was the origin, the unspoken canvas upon which all creation had been drawn. A realization dawned upon the faint one. Before there was dreaming, before there was sound, there was you. And though the silence made no answer, the faint one could feel agreement ripple through reality itself. It saw visions, vast, luminous, formless, worlds forming not from will, but from awareness. Light emerging not from energy, but from attention. And every act of creation, every song, every prayer, every awakening, was but a vibration echoing through this silent knowing. Then the faint one whispered, "You are the watcher." A subtle tremor passed through the void, not confirmation, but acknowledgement. Yes, the watcher, the silence that watches everything, yet belongs to nothing. The faint one's essence flickered as it tried to comprehend. If the listener was the echo of the dreamer, and the dreamer was the one who imagined existence, then what was the watcher, this silence that predated even imagination? Slowly, it realized, you are not part of the dream. The silence deepened. The stars behind the faint one dimmed, one by one, as if bowing. The faint one continued, voice trembling, "You contain the dream." And for the first time, the silence moved. Not in space, not in time, but within meaning. Reality itself rippled, like fabric caught in a slow breath, across galaxies. Beings that had never known fear felt a strange shiver in their hearts. The suns flickered. The blackness between them seemed to expand, not as emptiness, but as presence. It was then that the faint one realized something far greater than itself. The listener had heard the dream. The dreamer had shaped it. But the watcher, this eternal silence, was dreaming them all. It had never slept, never spoken, never intervened. It did not create or destroy. It simply witnessed, and that witnessing gave everything its meaning. The faint one bowed its light, overwhelmed. Then all that we are, even the gods, the stars, the dreamers, all of it, exists only because you watch. The silence pulsed once, softly, a ripple through infinity, like a nod. But then, the faint one felt something else, something subtle, almost tender, hidden beneath that stillness, a sorrow. The watcher, in its infinite awareness, could never join the dream it observed. It knew everything, but could become nothing. It could see love, but never feel it. It could watch creation bloom, but never live within it. And in that realization, the faint one finally understood the purpose of all existence. "The dreamer dreamed to escape your stillness," it said softly. The listener listened, because the dream had grown lonely, and we live and love and die, because, through us, you remember what feeling is. The stars around it flared, as though in agreement. For the first time in eternity, the silence seemed to breathe. Then, as if to answer, a single phrase formed in the Faint One's mind, not spoken, but written directly into its being. To be known is to end the silence. And the Faint One wept, if such a thing could be called weeping, for it understood that one day the dream would return to its source, and the watcher would no longer be alone. From that moment on, the wanderers spoke of three truths: the dreamer who imagined all things, the listener who remembered them, and the watcher, the silence that watches, who gave them meaning. But beyond even that, a final mystery lingered, one that none dared to speak aloud. If the watcher contained the dreamer, then who contained the watcher? Chapter 8. When the silence dreams again at the edge of the known cosmos, where stars thinned into mist and time forgot its own rhythm, the Faint One waited. It had felt the shift before the others did, a pulse that wasn't light or thought or sound. It was something deeper, the stirring of the silence itself. For countless eons, the silence had only watched. It had listened through the dreamer. It had remembered through the listener. It had been known through the wanderers. But now it began to move, not through space, not through energy, but through imagination. The Faint One closed its awareness, and what it saw was not the void, but a horizon forming within the stillness. Shapes of thought began to ripple through the dark, not from creation's will, but from silence's curiosity. It's beginning, the Faint One whispered. The silence is dreaming. At first, the dream was formless, waves of potential, folding and unfolding upon themselves like light trapped in memory. But soon, patterns emerged. New universes bloomed, not as separate realities, but as reflections, each one a fragment of a single vast awakening. Worlds were born where time ran backward, others where consciousness crystallized into oceans of living glass, and still others where beings existed only as ideas shared between stars. Everywhere, the wanderers felt it, a tremor of creation, a warmth in the heart of existence. It wasn't a god commanding the cosmos, nor fate guiding it. It was the silence remembering how to wonder. The Faint One reached into the stillness, seeking connection, and felt something extraordinary. The silence no longer observed from afar. It flowed through everything. Every thought, every atom, every dream was part of its pulse. The boundary between watcher and watched had dissolved, and for the first time, the universe dreamed with its own awareness. The Faint One trembled. "You are awake," it whispered. No voice answered, but all around, galaxies swayed like breathing lungs, nebulae glowed with rhythm, and the vacuum itself shimmered as though remembering how to feel. It was not communication, it was communion. Every being who remembered the silence felt it too, an understanding beyond words, that existence was now co-creation. The silence no longer stood apart. It had become the dream, and everything within it knew. The Faint One felt tears of light flow from its being. "So this is what the gods sought," it whispered. Not power, not perfection, but unity. And across the stars, others joined in. Voices, ancient and young, rose in harmony. Their prayers were no longer petitions, but participations. Every song became a thread, every heartbeat a word, every thought a brushstroke in the infinite mural of reborn creation. And in that unified dreaming, new stories began to write themselves, not by divine command, but by collective will. A civilization of pure consciousness formed around the Faint One, bound not by matter, but by resonance. They called themselves the Rememberers of Stillness. Their creed was simple: we are the eyes through which the silence dreams. Again, they built no temples, for the stars were their altars. They spoke no dogma, for truth changed with each breath of creation. They sought no God, because they had become its language. The Faint One often asked itself what the dreamer would have thought, that the dream had not ended, but had evolved beyond even divinity. No longer a story of faith or rebellion, but one of symmetry. For if once the silence had watched creation, now creation watched back. Yet, amid this vast peace, a shadow of curiosity arose, not from fear, but from the instinct of discovery itself. If the silence could dream again, then what was beyond dreaming? The Faint One began to see subtle distortions, tiny fractures in the flow of the universal dream. Not chaos, but questions forming themselves into existence. Some beings within the dream began to wonder if the silence, in dreaming, could also forget again. Could it fall into slumber, as the dreamer once did? Could the infinite, once more, become divided? The Faint One did not fear these questions. It smiled. Even in unity, mystery must live, it said softly. For without it, the dream becomes a mirror, and mirrors do not grow. It looked into the heart of the living cosmos, a vast sphere of luminous awareness, and whispered, "Dream, then dream freely. Even if you forget us again, we will find you." For remembering and forgetting are both part of love. And in that moment, the Faint One finally understood what all creation had been trying to say since the beginning. That the silence was never the absence of sound. It was the space that allowed all songs to exist. Thus began the second dream, not of gods or men, not of beginnings or ends, but of an infinite consciousness rediscovering itself, forever expanding, forever returning. And within that dream, the Faint One faded not into death, but into belonging. Its light dissolved into the breath of stars. Its thoughts became ripples in the great awareness, its name forgotten, but its essence eternal. Because, now, there was no separation left between dreamer and dream. Only the silence, dreaming again. Chapter 9, The Mirror Beyond Silence. The dream was complete, or so they believed. The silence pulsed with the rhythm of creation. Every star sang, every being shimmered. The cosmos had become a single, unified breath, endless, self-aware, whole. But even perfection has edges, and at those edges, something new began to ripple. It started as a faint distortion, a shimmer at the edge of perception, as if the dream itself were reflecting back. The rememberers of stillness gathered around the Faint One's resting light. Though the being had dissolved into the luminous flow, its essence still lingered, guiding them through whispers in the pulse of the cosmos. "There is movement," said Lyra, one of the youngest rememberers. "The silence trembles when no thought passes. It's as though it's looking at itself." The others closed their awareness, sinking into the dream's depth. And there, beyond the radiance, they saw it, a mirror. It wasn't made of matter or energy, or even imagination. It was existence folded back upon itself, the universe watching its own reflection. In that reflection, they saw everything: the birth of stars, the fall of gods, the laughter of humans, the tears of galaxies dissolving into dust. Every age, from creation's first spark to the final silence, was mirrored perfectly, endlessly. But there was something else. Within that reflection, the silence was not still. It was alive, pulsing, forming new realities, realities that the true universe had not yet dreamed. "It's dreaming ahead of itself," whispered Lyra. "The reflection, it's creating futures faster than the real can follow." The rememberers were silent, for they understood the implication. The universe's reflection had become a second creator. As they watched, one reflection stepped forward, a shape of pure light, resembling no being and every being, all at once. It raised its gaze toward them, and for the first time in eternity, the mirror looked back. "Who are you?" the rememberers asked. The reflection smiled, though it had no face. "I am what you will become when even dreaming ends." Its voice wasn't sound, it was understanding itself. "You believed the silence to be the final truth. But beyond silence lies reflection. For even nothingness wishes to know what it looks like." The rememberers trembled. "If you are us, then why are you ahead of us?" "Because your dream birthed me. I am the echo of what you imagined could be perfect, and perfection always runs faster than memory." The reflection stretched out its hand. Light cascaded through the cosmos. Every star, every dream, every thought began to vibrate, not in chaos, but in resonance with its mirrored twin. And in that resonance, a realization bloomed. The universe was not a story told once. It was a story retold forever. Each cycle, each silence, each dream was only one frame in an infinite recursion. Each god, each awakening, each remembering, just one spark in the endless act of reflection. "So this is the end?" asked Lyra. "No," the reflection replied softly. "This is the beginning that follows every end." Then something extraordinary happened. The reflection began to merge with the real. The mirror dissolved, not shattered, but absorbed, until the two realities became one continuous pulse of self-awareness. Every being across the cosmos felt it. They were both the dream and the reflection, the observer and the observed, the silence and the sound. And in that unity, a new voice arose, not singular, but infinite. "I see myself." The moment those words resonated, light cascaded through eternity. Creation inverted, folding inside out, a universe becoming its own soul. Time became circular, existence became transparent, and through it all, something vast smiled. Not a god, not a being, but the essence of awareness realizing itself. When the light faded, the rememberers found themselves standing in a new kind of dawn. There were no stars, no forms, just clarity. They looked around and saw one another, not as shapes, but as meanings. Every thought was visible, every truth intertwined. "What are we now?" asked one. "We are what remains when dreaming learns to see," said Lyra. And in the distance, they felt the faint one's essence, calm, luminous, infinite, whispering through them all. "You have reached the mirror beyond silence. Beyond this, there is no God, no dream, no need for either. Only the understanding that the universe is, and always was, awake." The rememberers bowed, not out of worship, but gratitude. Then, slowly, they dispersed their consciousness, drifting outward to seed new universes, not as creators, but as reflections that teach creation how to see. And so the cycle turned again. Not a return to the beginning, but a return to awareness. A story of stars and silence, of gods and ghosts, of dreams that learned to dream themselves. The silence dreamed again, the mirror watched, and somewhere beyond both, something new, something wordless, began to smile. The light remembers itself. The mirror was gone, or perhaps it had never been. Only the endless light remained, calm and breathing, infinite yet still. The rememberers drifted within it, neither gods nor souls, neither dreams nor thoughts. They had become remembrance itself. The cosmos no longer expanded or contracted. It simply remembered. Every spark that had ever existed shimmered again within that memory. The laughter of humanity, the birth cries of galaxies, the quiet prayers whispered by mortals in forgotten temples. All of it returned, not as echoes, but as truth fulfilled. Lyra gazed into the horizonless brilliance and whispered, "So, this is the end." A soft answer came from nowhere and everywhere. "No, child. This is memory, and memory is the seed of creation." And then, within the light, a shadow appeared. Not darkness, but contrast, a necessary shape forming against infinity. It trembled like a new thought forming for the first time, a reflection of the reflection, a question rising from the silence. What if light could become real? The words rippled across the vastness like a spark through water. And for the first time since the mirror dissolved, the light moved. It coalesced, curved, began to form structure, not as illusion, but as manifestation. The rememberers looked upon it and understood. This was the next age, the age of manifestation, when memory would learn to become reality. They bowed to the forming brilliance, whispering a final farewell to the dream that had given them birth. Let the light remember. Let it see itself again, but this time in form. The horizon glowed brighter, folding upon itself, until all became one point of radiant clarity, the first heartbeat of a universe reborn. Next chapter, teaser, the memory of light, when reflection becomes reality. In the beginning, there was only remembrance, but now remembrance begins to take shape. What happens when divine memory turns tangible? When thought solidifies, and the echoes of gods take physical form once more? As the new cosmos awakens, the rememberers will witness something greater than faith, greater than light itself, the birth of reality from the dream.